I think this would be a good time for me to talk about affirmative action and about whether I support affirmative action or not, and where I stand on that. My view of this has gone through many transformations and iterations over the past 20 years, and this is where I stand on it right now, currently, right now. My support or lack of support of affirmative action is will always be situation specific. If the situation demands it, I would support it. If there is no justification for it based on the data, then I won't support it. And pursuant to those goals, for instance, I do not support affirmative action in the United States of America, but I do support affirmative action in South Africa. Why, you may ask? And this is why. And subsequently, I wouldn't support it in Europe either, in any European country. The unemployment rate of black South Africans is 37%. The unemployment rate of white South African is 7%. That is similar to the unemployment rate of France. That is unemployment rate that is lower than the OECD average. That is an unemployment rate that is lower than at least 5 European nations that I can think of my head, where white South Africans in South Africa have it better than at least 5 large European nations that I can think of. And when in the US, though, the unemployment rate of white Americans is around about 3.5%. The unemployment rate of black Americans is around about 7%. If the unemployment rate of black people were, let me put it this way, if the unemployment rate of blacks in America was as high in America as it is in South Africa, it would be around about 17%. This is to say, if the differences in South Africa between the races were similar to the differences in the races in the US, the unemployment rate of whites in the US would be 3.5%, and unemployment rates of blacks in America would be 17%. If the unemployment rate of blacks in America were 17%, there would be riots on the streets. Literally, there would be riots. There would not be a single conservative in the US that would be able to justify having an unemployment rate of 17% for blacks and an unemployment rate for 3.5% for whites. That kind of difference tells you that, among other things, black people are being discriminated against, among other things. And that is what is happening in South Africa. This is to say that job reservation for whites is happening in South Africa. It's happening in large numbers. That what happens is that they reserve jobs for white people, and then whatever jobs are left, they give them to black people. That is what is happening in South Africa right now. I'm talking about the private sector, and the private sector is the number one employer anywhere in the world. And then you put aside the issue of unemployment rate. But okay, while we're still on the issue of unemployment rate, in America, which is why I don't support affirmative action in the US, but I support in South Africa. In America, any person, black, white, Asian, who is looking for a job can get a job. Any person in the US, black, white, or Asian, who is looking for a job can get a job. Same day they can get a job. It could be a minimum wage job. They might have to do 2 jobs or 3 jobs, but they can get a job. Same day or same week. In South Africa, any white person who is seriously looking for a job can get a job. That's the difference. But blacks in South Africa can't get jobs. There are blacks in South Africa who have not worked for 10 years. White South Africans have no such experience in South Africa. No such experience. So that's why I'm saying I would support it in South Africa, but not in the United States of America. That's one issue. And then there's the issue of, in the United States, any hard-working person in the United States can live a very good life, a comfortable middle-class life. In South Africa, any hard-working white South African can live a middle-class life. That's the difference. The amount of white South Africans who have no university qualifications, no further training of any kind, who earn at least 1 million rand a year or just a little bit, who are living a very good life, is actually quite incredible. For black South Africans to get that life, they have to have a university qualification. The amount of white South Africans who live a comfortable, affluent suburban life, who have no university qualification, is crazy. Crazy. The amount of white South Africans who are leading teams and who are managers at work, even having black people with university qualifications reporting to them while they have no university qualifications, is absolutely insane. So much so as to say that affirmative action in South Africa is justified. And the way that hiring happens and the way that promotion happens in South Africa, I would say that of all the places that have an exposure to, South Africa is one of the most racist places that I've been in. And the United States of America is one of the most meritocratic places that one have been to. Let me say that again. South Africa is one of the most racist places that I know. The United States of America is one of the most meritocratic places that I know. This is not to say that there is no racism in America. This is not to say that there is no discrimination in America. And this is not to say that there isn't white supremacy and problems like that in America. This is to say that those things, I've seen those things more in South Africa. The level of racism and racial discrimination that happens in South Africa, I don't have any other nations that have the equivalent amount of racism. It's actually quite shocking. So, which is why I would say that I would support it in South Africa, and I wouldn't support it in the US, and I wouldn't support it in Europe, and I wouldn't support it in Australia. But I would definitely support it in South Africa. Here's another date. Anyone in the United States of America who wants to start a company or wants to start a business can easily start a business. What I'm saying easily, meaning the level of ease and the level of difficulty isn't that much different between the races. In South Africa, it is impossible for black people to start businesses. More than 70% of small businesses are owned by white people. Situations like that tell you that there is a problem. There's a problem. There's a big, big problem. So which is why I'm saying that race-based policies based on the data alone makes sense in South Africa, but they don't necessarily make sense in the US or UK or even Germany. You have nations in Europe that are so white, like they're like 90% white, but black people will experience the least amount of prejudice than they would in a country like South Africa, which is 70% black. That is how insane racism is in South Africa compared to other places. It's absolutely insane. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, so that's why for me then affirmative action is a matter of which country are you talking about? What's the situation in that country? Yeah. That's that's really where I stand with regards to affirmative action. And and also looking in terms of the attitude of most white South Africans. Affirmative action and race-based policies might actually have to continue for the longest time because white South Africans, by and large, or the majority of white South Africans are not interested in reducing the level of concentration in wealth and in concentration in opportunity that exist favoring them. And it seems to me that everyone always understands that when there's this kind of level of concentration, that it is unstable for any country in, and it is not conducive to nation building. It is not conducive to harmony. It is not conducive to just to national cohesiveness. To the point that when in 1989, when the Berlin Wall fell, Western Germany started intentionally investing millions of euros into Eastern Germany in order for them to try to eliminate the differences in opportunity and wealth that and development that existed between Western Germany and Eastern Germany. That level of investment that has been happening between West has been moving from Western Germany to Eastern Germany continued deep into the 90s, into the early 2000s. It was the only way that Germany would achieve national harmony and social cohesion. No one called it socialism. No such thing has happened in South Africa. The level of concentration that exists in the hands of few people is incredible in South Africa. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah, so it's one of the things for me that just makes me feel like that there's nothing that can be done. That it's just better to leave. Yeah, it's one of those things because if I get better opportunities in the US than I get in a country that is 80% black, then it's a no-brainer for me. So that's really where I stand on that issue of affirmative action and race-based policies. Cheers.